Howdy, guys, and welcome back to the part 2 episode of Why Your Money Fails and How ROCS Fixes It. If you don't know what ROCS are, you've been living under a rock. What's going on here? Go back to the part 1 of this episode. It'll explain everything. Well, now that you're back from the part 1 of the episode, welcome to part 2. I'm Dom, he's Chris, and let's get right into today's episode.
This is where you need to either be extremely self-aware, like to like a 90th percentile self-aware, or you need somebody's help to help out. Like, where is it that I want to go? But it doesn't have to be like a professional. It could be your partner. It could be a book. It could be a journal. It could be something like that.
Yeah.
But if you are stuck in outcomes, there are 2 actions I want you to do this week. I want you to choose, because too many people, when they look at the outcome, they look at what's the big goal? Like, what's the goal that I wanted out of my life? And that's sometimes too scary, too nebulous, too whatever. Maybe what you can do is choose an outcome that you want in the next 90 days. Start to build that muscle up. What is it I want in the next 90 days? How do I want to wake up in the next 90 days to be like, yeah, I'm making progress? And then number 2, I want you to be able to finish this sentence. This matters to me because in the next 90 days, I want to be here, and that matters to me because. The self-awareness question that we ask when we get to, have you figured out outcome is, can you say your goal in one sentence with a number and a by when date? This is my goal. This is the number. This is by when, and this is why. Now that we've kind of pressure tested our reality, we've pressure tested the outcome. Now we have to move on to constraints. And this is where people get the most pissed off. It's in these constraints because they feel like it's unfair. C in ROCS stands for constraints. Constraints are what must be respected. Your time, your energy, your family, your obligations, your lifestyle requirements, your risk tolerance, and the reality of your finances. Constraints aren't execution. Constraints aren't excuses. They're designed limits. Designed by, God or Allah or whatever you want to say. Designed by yourself. And if your plan violates the constraints, you will fail. I guarantee you will fail if you think that I can just blow past the constraints because they don't apply to me. Yeah. We all heard stories of people that blew past the constraints. They did it. They ran their engine till red. And, maybe they won the game, but they lost the battle. Or they won the battle, but they lost the war. Yeah. You can't just stick outside of constraints indefinitely. That's like trying to avoid reality and just saying, I can do it with my willpower alone. People think that their unique discipline, their uniqueness is the thing that's going to set them apart. Yeah. But in truth, your constraints is what's going to set you apart from people. And you need to be realistic when we plan. All of this entire ROCS framework is a financial planning tool that I use. So the reason that we have to respect these constraints is because if we don't, your plan will fail, and I guarantee that. Yeah. You can't just say, oh, well, if I'm making $100,000 and my goal is to spend $200,000, well, it's going to work because that's what I want. It's my life. It's what I want for my life. It's my goal. It's the outcome that I want to be able to do. There are still constraints in life. There are still physics to this. And math is math. And it doesn't matter how much you hate the math. It's still the right answer. What do you think about constraints thus far, Dom?
Well, I think constraints to me, they kind of act like rules a little bit in a sense where it's like if you were watching a basketball game and there were no rules, it's like, okay, it's just going to turn into a fist fight at the end, right? Street basketball. I think it's good to have constraints. The biggest constraint I always see and I always hear is like time constraint. It's like, I don't have any time. I don't have any time. I'm like, it's like it's like a pet peeve of mine hearing that. It's like, I don't have any time. It's like, I get it, right? You're not unique. It's not like you're going around the sun quicker than I am. We all have 24 hours in a day. sleep 8 hours, you get 16 hours, you work 8 hours, you still have 8 hours, like, I don't know, it's just the constraint of time has always been something that is really annoying, and I was gonna say this in the, Friday episode, but I this is actually the perfect time to do this, um, in regards to time restraint. Alex Hormozy, one of the guys I follow, actually have, like, 3 of his books right here. Um, he was saying that, like, what you should do if just in general is, like, have a timer on your desk and you're working or whatever, right? And every 15 minutes on your calendar, write out what you just did for the last 15 minutes. And, I had a bunch of dishes in the sink, yesterday, and I was like, "Man, this is gonna take me an hour, and I this is gonna suck." And I've gotta empty the dishwasher, I've gotta fill the dishwasher, I gotta hand wash these specific ones, dry them, and put them away, and I'm like, "This is gonna take an hour, like, and so much energy," and I was like, "Let's get into it." And I was, like, I doing my thing, like, getting it done. I'm like, "Wow, it took me 4 minutes, it took me 3 minutes to empty the dishwasher, perfect. Ba, 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 ba. It took me 4 minutes to fill the dishwasher, crazy, and it took another 10 minutes to, like, hand wash the ones that needed to be hand washed, and in the end, I was at, like, 20 minutes, and I was like, "Imagine that. Only took 20 minutes, you thought it was gonna take an hour and a lot of energy, it didn't." And I just wanna say before I finish, this is a wonderful exercise, but on your next day or today, right, set a timer for 15 minutes on your watch, and every 15 minutes, write down what you did in that 15 minutes. And it's a crazy exercise. It's really helped me a lot, to really actually get stuff done and not be like, "Oh, man, I have dinner at 5 o'clock that I have to go to, so I only have 3 hours." It's like, "Okay, yeah, 3 hours is a lot of time to get stuff done." It's not just, you didn't just lose it. But I'm sorry, I kinda went off on a bit of a tangent, and I just wanted to share that because that's something I've learned this week that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a good one. I hope that our audience members like take that as an action step and just and give that a try too. For constraints, I think a common trap that people fall into when they're creating like a financial plan or something that they can think like, can this work for me? Is they hope that the plan that I build will work or is going to work, but only if everything goes well, only if I have a perfect month. And you're not going to have that. The thing that most people get most pissed off of when we get to this point of the constraints is that we all go through life and we all make choices. And each one of those choices has residuals on them. They have constraints of their own. Too often do I meet with parents who are like, "Oh, well, I wish I could do that, but I have kids." And like, you're not going to want to hear this, but like, yeah, you do. And now you have different constraints than people who don't have kids. And the fact that you have kids is a choice. I wish I could do that, but my spouse spends too much money. Okay. And that is a choice. I wish I could do that, but I have this big house that I have to pay for. Again, it is a choice. And sometimes the constraints, it sucks that you put yourself into that situation. And that's what people need to hear. Yes, there are confounding variables. There are things that we get put into, thrust into, no matter what. Like for me, right now I have this huge medical bill from a knee surgery that I didn't ask for, that I didn't want to happen, but there are constraints in life and that I have to pay for that. I made lifestyle choices. I did jujitsu, I did football, I did all these things, and I took on the risk knowing that there was chance of injury, and here I am dealing with it. And sometimes when you say like, "Oh, well, the constraints shouldn't have done those things," but no, though this is constraints. I have time, energy, family, all of these things. This would be a financial constraint. It is a part of reality and the risk tolerance of life. And yeah, it's not fair. And nothing ever is. No one, when you came out, when like we were born, came out of your mom, no one smacked your butt and was like, "Hey, kid, like everything from here is smooth sailing. Like it's all going to be super fair and just great." People come into this world unequal. It sucks and it is what it is. You're never going to have equality of time because that's just not the reality of who we are. We have to be able to follow these things and just understand them. And that doesn't mean that you have to look at other people and be upset that they're where they are and you're where you are. Work. Keep on trying. Try to attain what they have if that's what you want. And also know that they're struggling with their own things too.
And I think that's what's so important, right? It's like you'll see people who are quote unquote perfect, but one thing I learned early on is like we are all suffering with something. Even the most perfect, right? The mothers, the fathers, right? Even the president, right? We're all suffering with something. Nobody is without suffering. And I think that's is so important to keep in mind too. 'Cause I like to give people more slack than maybe they deserve, but I understand that, listen, they're suffering just like me, right? We're all suffering with something. We're all afraid and scared and in the unknown. This is all the first time. Hopefully, this is all the first time, we've been alive doing this, right? Maybe they're like a vampire or something. I don't know, something crazy. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to toss that in. It's like, yeah, it's nobody is perfect, but we can sure try. Right? And maybe that's a dangerous ask, but for some of us, it's the ask that we keep repeating to ourselves.
Yeah. For our actions, for if you are in constraints, and constraints is a difficult one. All of this is difficult. I'm not going to say that any one of these parts is easy because it's not. And that's the reason that most people avoid them. But I want you to list your top 3 constraints right now. And the reason I say right now is because it will change. Like for me, I'm still recovering from a surgery. So my energy is lower than it normally is. There are people I've worked with who are bipolar. And, a constraint that they have is that they might go manic at any time. That's a real constraint. And is it fair? No, it's not fair. And it's the reality of what they have to deal with. Maybe sometimes just focusing on like, hey, there are other people who have it worse. And I guarantee if you're listening to this freaking podcast, you are on the top 1% of civilization in history. You could have been born in the Congo mining for cobalt on your mom's back. You could have been born into a small village that you had zero chance of anything. And who knows? Maybe you'd probably be happier. Maybe we would probably all be happier if we were born into a small village where it was just like subsistence living. I don't know. But these level of depths of despair, and the reason I can talk about this is because I struggle with it. It is a privilege to be depressed. It is a privilege to have anxiety because there is somebody out there who is far worse, who doesn't have the time to be depressed, who doesn't have the ability to have anxiety because right now it is, I am surviving. And if I stop, if I give any more energy to this feelings of concern about my past or fear about my future, I won't make it right now.
Yeah.
Is the plan that you're trying to build dependent on everything being perfect to succeed? If it is, you don't have a plan. You have a nice little wish list there. And your nice little wish list is not going to meet up against reality. So I want you to list out your top 3 constraints and I want you to write down my plan must still work, even if blank happens. Because I think you're going to know what things are my biggest issues. What are my biggest places where I see risk in my life? You know what they are. I don't know what they are. You know what they are, though. Would your plan still work even if those things happen? And if not, we can go ahead and start to make changes on those things today. I'm not saying fix it right now, but I'm saying understand that and know that, hey, I can start to build in ways to deal with those things. Constraints are hard. And every constraint that you have was a choice that either you made or somebody else made for you. In life, we don't get to decide what happens to us, but we decide how we choose to act in spite of what happened to us. So this is where you get to choose. And this is where you get to choose to either move forward or to sit around and complain and say that somebody else should fix it for me. Because no one is coming to save you. Don, before we move on to systems, do you have anything you want to talk about constraints anymore?
I just could you list maybe 2 examples of constraints for your own life that you're kind of dealing with, if you don't mind, if
Yeah,
it's
of
too
course.
personal?
No. For me, there's when it comes to constraints, like especially like right now, like I have a lot of like energy constraints, and that just kind of sucks, just because of my knee recovering. Another big one is I have a lot of financial constraints, like just like everybody else. I wish that I could do whatever I want. I wish that I had the ability to do what I was just doing last year, where I could go to Africa, travel, and do all these things. But life changed. We moved to California. Things are far more expensive in California, and we still have this nice house. We still have all of these things. And I could sit there and be like, oh, well, I wish I was able to travel and do all these things and save money and be where I want to be. But I have this big house and I have this stupid house with this dumb rent payment that I have to pay every month because rent's so expensive and all this stuff. And it shouldn't be this way and it's not fair. And I made choices to be here right now. I wish that I didn't have to deal with medical bills for having a knee surgery that I didn't ask for. Yet that's the reality of it. There are still the reality of your finances. I took on the risk and here I am, and I have to deal with these things. So those are the constraints of my life that I have to deal with. And those constraints don't make me a weaker person. They don't stop me from doing everything that I want. They just put a little bit of a buffer on them, or I have to figure out a way around them. Does that answer your
Thank you.
question?
That's perfect. No, I think that's perfect. Um, I feel like sometimes for me it's easier to point out where someone else has a constraint or a problem or something like that. But when you go to like look inward, it's like, well, what are my constraints? It's like, what are my problems? So for me, that's one of the things where it's like I have to dedicate a lot of energy to like thinking about it and like looking in and be like, all right, what's going wrong? What's going wrong? So that was helpful. That was really helpful. And I'm excited to get onto systems. So excited.
Yeah. For
I
some
just
people, I mean, a lot of people, when they do that, what I find is like it's an energy constraint typically. It's like, I don't even have the energy to look in to figure out what my constraints are. Or like, why are you not doing what you need to do? And they're like, well, I don't know. Is it an energy problem? Is it a desire problem? Because those are constraints too. Like it all comes from somewhere. So you need to figure those types of things out. So if reality is true and constraints are respected, systems become much simpler than you think. There's a reason we don't just jump to systems and say, like, I'm just going to do systems. Like, I don't need to worry about all these things. Because if you don't understand the reality of what's going on, you don't understand the outcomes that you're looking for, you don't understand the constraints that are binding you, the physics of reality, the physics of your finances, building your system is just going to be like a nice little wish list that's never going to get you anywhere. So in ROCS, and ROCS is ROCK. I understand I took out the K. The K, that didn't work in this one.
I love
S
that.
is for system.
Okay.
System is the structure that turns effort into momentum. It's monthly, it's weekly, it's daily, it's repeatable with safety built in. So you're not having to rely on willpower every single day to be able to make progress. It's kind of like people that brush their teeth every morning. I'm not waking up every morning and I have to brush my teeth off of willpower. It's habit, it's part of my system. When I wake up, I'm not like, God, I have to make the bed. It's going to take me so much willpower to make the bed. No, it's part of my system and it's been inbred in me ever since I was a kid. And I had a military father that made me make my bed. And now it's just a part of my life. It's part of the system. And that's what we need to do with life. Because if we're going through life hoping that my willpower will be able to make me do all these things, maybe it's going to work when things are going well, but I can guarantee you that things aren't going to go well because that's the way the world works. So there's a few parts to systems, and that's what makes it more difficult. The first part is having an anchor goal. We've talked about this with our outcome, but every plan needs an anchor goal. The outcome your plan serves first. What is the main pool that I am trying to fill up? That doesn't mean that you need to have fewer goals in life. I think too many people say like, oh, then that means I can only have one goal. And that's not really what it means. It means that you need to have one clear goal that supersedes all of the other ones. So with your plan, what am I going to try to serve first? And how can that goal help to serve these other smaller goals that I have? Any questions on anchor goal, Dom?
No, I was just thinking about I like the pool analogy. Um, every plan needs an anchor goal, the outcome your plan serves first. Yeah. Could you give us a financial example of that?
Hmm. let's say that your goal is to, we'll use me as an example.
Okay.
If my goal is when I have kids to be able to stay home with them when they're younger, is that my life arching goal? No, because it's time constrained. Like, you know, that that's not going to last forever. Your kids aren't going to stay inside the house forever. But that's my goal right now. And that's where I'm trying to strive for. So if that's my anchor goal, I have other goals in life. I want to be financially independent. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to do all of these other things. So if my main goal right now is to be able to, when I have kids, stay home with them, does that mean that I can't travel anymore? Does that mean that I can't be financially independent? Does that mean all of these other things? No, it doesn't. It just means that I have to make sure that I'm trying to serve this first goal first. And then any runoff can go into the other goals. And things like financial independence and being able to stay home with your kids, well, those things kind of work together. So nice. Like, I'm glad that those things work out.
So it's kind of like a hose, and you have like a bucket. You have like four buckets. I'll fill up bucket number two once bucket number one is full. Correct?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I have a thing that I use with my clients, but it's basically, it's kind of like that. There's like a big pool, a big bowl with a couple of lips on the end of it, and then there's a few buckets underneath that.
Gotcha.
But we're not, what most people do is they're like, they'll ignore the big bowl and they'll just try to fill up the small buckets around it. Or
Yeah.
they're just filling up buckets that aren't even in the photo. They're just throwing water somewhere else, you know?
Yeah. Okay. No, that analogy really helped. That analogy really help me understand. And I think that that helped the people understand it as well. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. And then that's where part two comes in. It's like you kind of already talked about that, but they're supporting goals. They're sequenced by margin. Like, they're supporting goals don't fully disappear just because you're trying to work on one goal, but they get sequenced by what's left over in serving the larger goal. Because too many people think like, okay, well, if I have my biggest goal is this, but I also want to do this, well, I'm going to focus on this right now. Like, no, you need to focus on the biggest one, and whatever you have left goes to there. It's kind of like paying yourself first. You know, you don't get your money and then go, oh, I'm going to spend everything. Whatever's left over, I'll give to myself for future savings, for retirement, for all those things. If you don't pay yourself first, there's not going to be anything left over. So you pay yourself with what is left.
Okay. Okay.
The
Y-
third part of systems is having a monthly structure. And this is where it gets really hard, but real progress happens monthly, weekly, daily, not with annual willpower. If your plan needs like constant willpower, then I've said it before, but it isn't a plan, it's a wish list. It's what you hope is going to happen. So this is where we are in a place, especially financially, this is the nicest thing where things can be automated. There's a reason here at the Five Guys that we talk about automation all the time. That takes your willpower out entirely. But that means sitting down, understanding your reality, your constraints, your outcomes, and then building a system that works with you. Because too many people say, oh, don't worry, Chris, I'm just going to automate to save 50% of my income is going to go to my 401k, or 50% of my income is going to go to savings in this thing. It's like, okay, that's a wonderful system, but does that work with your outcomes, with your reality and your constraints? Because if it doesn't, it's not going to work. You have a nice wish list, but you don't have an actual plan. What questions do you have on monthly structure?
I in our notes here, I highlighted what you said. Um, if a plan needs constant willpower, it isn't a plan; it's a wish. I think too often for people like us, we believe that willpower is enough. It's like I have. What do you mean? I have a strong enough why? Why can't I just force it into existence? But like you said, you know, we're not trying to build a plan for the perfect day when the sun is shining right at the top of the sky and it's 79 with like a nice little breeze. It's like, no, we're trying to build a plan that can last, plan that actually works because there's like never a perfect day. And even on the perfect day, things go wrong. Um, a plan needs, if a plan needs constant willpower, it isn't a plan. It's a wish. Damn, that hits very close to home for me. I'm gonna keep that in my notes. That's a really good one. And I think a lot of people would connect with that one as well. Um, So how do you plan against that?
What do you mean by how do you plan against that?
So yeah, so say what going to the gym, right? Um, gotta takes it takes kind of takes willpower to go to the gym, right? If you're new to it, um, how do you build a plan that doesn't require willpower? And granted, I know a plan is going to need willpower sometimes, right? But I think the idea
To get
here is
started.
that
Yes. To get
exactly
started.
to get started, right? The goal isn't to always need willpower for the next 20 years, right? You should, it's just like the spark to get the fire going, right? I guess maybe I'm just talking. um it kind of explained itself now that I think about it. It with like the constant willpower. So I was like, well, aren't you always gonna need willpower to it's like to get up and go to the gym? It's like, no, you should get this the constant willpower. It's like, no, it's like willpower is just for the spark, not for the long term, right? It's the kerosene, it's not the fuel
Yep.
for the
Eventually you
fire.
create the habit. Eventually it just
Yeah,
becomes a part of you and you're not even and it becomes just like how most of us are going through life,
yeah,
habitually reacting and not thinking about things.
yeah.
Like when I woke up, like when you wake up and go straight to the bathroom to go pee, like do you think about that or is that just something that you do?
I mean, you do.
It's just
Yeah.
something you do. When you wake up, when you take a shower and like, I don't know, maybe you like reach for the soap first or you shampoo your hair first or whatever it is, you're not thinking about those things. That's just what you do. You can do the same thing with your money. It just takes some effort and willpower. There's a lot of things. Like when you were born, you didn't know how to walk or talk, and now you do those things great because it's just what you do. But a big thing that I want to talk about is we need to build in some safety because what I've seen a lot of people do is before they start to accelerate, before they start to like, let's build up a lot of speed, this is where I tell people to take a little bit of a pause and to build in a little bit of safety because speed in like building up my structures and everything without any safety creates stress and having a little bit of safety creates freedom. So this is the reason that we talk about having emergency savings. This is the reason we have all of these things. This is a part of the system because having a little bit of a buffer, having a strong foundation allows us to build our systems on well, I guess a foundation that's really worth it. Because if your system is built on everything again working perfectly, that's not the way that life works. That's the reason we talk about constraints. That's the reason we talk about reality. That's the reason we talk about all these things before we get here. So now we understand that we can build in a safety buffer into our plan. Because too many people with their systems, they're going to go ahead and say like, all right, so I'm going to get a 12% return. My monthly expenses are going to be this and all of these things. We need to be able to build in that safety buffer to give you time when life happens, when shit hits the fan, because I guarantee you it will. So does your plan run on autopilot or does it require you to become a different person every single month in order to keep it working? Do I need to change who I am as a person in order to be able to say like, yeah, I have a good plan because I have to change who I am, the way that I live, the way that I do everything. If it does, then your plan, your system will most likely fail because you're not going to want to change every single month in order to adapt to the system.
I'm thinking here, I'm like, damn. I feel like because I'm in the midst of like changing parts of my plan for the next couple months. And I'm just like, man, I need to wake up like 3 hours, 2 hours before like work starts to like get everything I need to get done before work. And like in that time, it's like mostly editing and like stretching and meditating. And I'm like, damn, do I have to? I'm trying to like change who I am, and I'm like, man, yeah, probably will fail. Probably will fail. Um, but I do love the idea that it's like, does your plan run on autopilot? Right? Can it become so ingrained in who you are that it is second nature? And are you willing to do this long term? I think that's definitely some of the questions that I need to ask myself more often when coming up with one of these detailed plans and systems.
And one of the nicest things, Dom, and I'll ask you this is like, what do you think a simple plan is that someone can get started with for like normal people who aren't robots, who don't have everything set up, who or life is going to get hard for them? What's a simple plan that they can start to do right now to take control of their finances?
Every week, have a money date. and take a look at what's going in, what's going out, and making sure that, you're sticking to the budget and you're not just, that there's a budget, but you're aware of what the budget is and what the constraints and rules are of the budget. Um, for me, it's that money date that we talked about.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another one you could do is, hey, I don't know how much money I can save a month, but can I automate 2% of my savings to go to my 401k? Can I get my match? Can I do something like that? Can I get it so before I even get the paycheck, it's already taken out? Can I automate when money hits my bank account that 5% of it goes to savings? The nice thing about these systems is that they can be done automatically with robots. You get to use robots now to do it for you. You don't have to think like, oh, hey, my paycheck just came in. I got $2,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is. I need to take 20% of that. What's 10% of this? Blah, 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 blah. Move that over. You can do it all automatically and focus on your life. Focus on work, focus on your family, focus on all these other things because you only have so much willpower and so much energy and so much time. Those are part of the constraints that you have to be cognizant of when you make your systems. We are so lucky that we live in a time that the systems can be automated through a little bit of willpower one time. And then if you need to update, you update accordingly. And you will need to update. That is life, and it's okay. So I want you to find your letter. This is just a quick diagnostic. So let's make this all practical. If you feel anxious and you don't know your real numbers, that means that you're stuck in reality. And that's okay. You know what action steps you need to take. If you know your numbers, but you don't know what you're aiming at, then you're an outcome. And you know what you need to focus on because we talked about those action steps. If you've got goals, but your plan collapses when life gets hard, then you're probably dealing with constraints and you're not respecting those constraints, or you're hoping that those constraints go away automatically, or that I can just will them away if I try hard enough. And if you know the first three, but you still just can't stay consistent month to month, then you have a system problem. Each one of these things can be dealt with. So Dom, now that we've started out and you said, hey, systems were my issue, which one do you think you are now?
And with that, the episode. I'm just kidding. Um, um, now that I'm like, man, do I know my real numbers? Do I know how much is in my 401k? How much is in my savings directly? It's like I've got a rough number. Um, I know how much is in my checking. I know how much is in my, emergency fund, but maybe I do need to start over and kind of go through it and just start from the beginning. Be like, hey, let's check out our numbers. Let's make sure that we are operating in reality. And then we can kind of adjust where we want to be based on those numbers, make sure we're getting where we need to go. Um, so it definitely, it's changed how I thought a little bit. It's changed. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not as far along as I thought. Maybe I need to go back and just double check everything and make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. But
I'll
yeah,
tell you this, Dom. 50% of people I meet with don't even know how much money they make. They might know their gross amount, like, oh, I make 120 a year. And I say,
yeah,
okay, well, what does that mean net? Like, how much are you actually bringing home at the end of the year? And they're like, I have no idea. Whatever hits my account. Or they say like, okay, well, it's like how much did you make last year? Like, yeah, I made 120. Like, okay, but like, if it ends in a 000, like I know that that's the wrong number.
yeah,
And then if 50% of people don't know how much money they make, especially when it's a partnership, it's even higher. 95% of people don't know what they spend. They don't know. They have zero idea. Oh yeah, I spend like $3,000 a month. Again, ends in double zeros. I know that you could probably double it. And that's probably closer to the real reality.
yeah.
So to our listeners. So I'm just telling you, Dom, like you're not alone. Like I'm with you there sometimes too. And that's okay. Here's your challenge. I want you to identify your rocks. I want you to identify which step of the process you in. Are you in reality? Are you in outcome? Are you in constraints? Are you in systems? And I want you to take one action step this week. One of the action steps that we talked about, if whatever system you're in. If you want help applying ROCS to your situation, you could always create or book a personal strategy session with me at chris@monsonwealth.com, or just go to Mons on Wealth and book a time. And I'll help you build a plan that actually holds. Because sometimes it's nice to have a person there to ask the questions, because just like Dom said, it's difficult. Sometimes you'll sit there and be like, oh, I have zero idea on any of these things. I don't even know where to start, especially with the outcomes, especially with the constraints, especially with the systems. Reality is, it's a bit easier, but it's scary. So sometimes having somebody there to be like, hey, it's okay. We're going to do this together. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure people can see where some of that might be able to add value. But Dom, as we close out on the ROCS framework, what was your thoughts on the framework that I created? Do you think that it can help our audience members?
I like it. I like it a lot. I like that it takes into effect like the emotional side, the reality of life side. Um, that's one of the things that I have a lot of trouble with sometimes is creating plans in a vacuum. And this helps not just expose that, but also fix a lot of those problems. Um, yeah, this is a good one. I really like this one. I'm going to go through, and this is one of those episodes where, obviously we were talking for a good amount of time, but I'm going to go back and have to listen to it again and like take my notes again and just like make sure it like soaks in and really build out my own idea of what it is and see how I can use it best in my own life. But I think it's very actionable. I think it's very useful. If you didn't act on any of these action steps today, I don't know what you're doing because there's like 10 in there. Um, but yeah, no, it was a really great podcast, and I don't know how you created it. I don't know, maybe you were meditating, you started floating, and got hit with rocks, and you're like, bam, I have what the people need.
Yeah, some
Um,
mean kid threw a rock at me, and I was like, I got it.
I got it. I understand rock with no S. I understand now. He's like,
Rocks with
what?
okay.
Yeah, with no K. Yeah, sorry. But yeah, no, I think this is a great one. I think this is one of the best ones and one of the most actionable podcasts we've ever put out. And I'm excited to hear back from people and also from just myself, just on how I can implement this and how I plan on implementing it. And man, that quote from point number 9, you said about how if your plan needs constant willpower, it's just a wish. I'm like, dang. Oh, that's like a gut punch right to the gut. I almost said to the face, but that didn't make much sense, right? But um, yeah, I appreciate you for sharing this with us, and now I'm more informed on rocks. So I thank you very much. Should we close out the podcast?
We should. Would you like to do that?
Sure, I got it. Well, guys, if you got literally anything out of today's episode, share with a friend, with a family. My mom inspired me last week. She called me, and she has great timing on when my days off are. And so she calls me and she's like, "Hey, what are you doing today?" And I was like, I'm doing XYZ. She's like, "You need to come over." I was like, "Why? What's going on? Is this serious?" She's like, "This podcast episode I'm watching, it's crazy. It'll change your life. You have to come over right now." 3 hours later, guess where I'm at, right? So be like my mom, get someone to watch the episode. Literally, she wasn't going to take no for an answer. Wasn't going to, she's like, "This podcast will change your life." And she is an avid listener of the podcast. So howdy, mom. Glad to see it. And not just, she's like, "You got to listen to it. It's just our podcast." Yeah, I heard this before. um, it is kind of cool though. She does watch the episodes and she's like, "Oh, I love that." Great. She always says this and I don't see it. Listeners, back me up on this. I don't see it. She's like, "Sometimes I can't tell if it's you talking or Chris talking." I was like, "How? We don't sound anything alike. What do you mean? I'm more high pitch. He's stoic." I'm like, what do you mean? Like he taught what? I was like, "All right, whatever, mom. That's fine. That's fine." But be like mom. Share the episode. Bring it in with a friend. Watch it with a family member. Really, this will change someone's life, and I truly believe that because the systems that we create bring us the life that we truly want. So, with that being said, I'm Dom. He's Chris. We will see you in the next episode of the Five Guys podcast. We're grateful to have you here. We'll see you in the next one.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Mons on Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.